Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakumullah everyone for arriving on time, and especially to those who arrived early and waited patiently. So today is the 36th class of our G3 course, and today we will be continuing with Ayatul Kursi from last week. So last week we covered the first half of Ayatul Kursi, and inshallah today we will finish this verse, Ayatul Kursi, by doing the second half. So before anything else, let's start the class with the opening prayer. Can I request the ST for a student?
AG3069.
AG3069. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, let's start the prayer with Bismillah.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. Lord, expand my mind and make my task easy for me. Taha 26 to 27.
Jazakallah. MashaAllah, you recited really well. I just want to point out two things. First of all, the letter Sod, it's one of the 7 thick letters. Okay, so remember that. You have to make a thick sound for the letter Sod. Okay.
Sod.
Yes, that's right. Sadri.
Sadri.
Jazakallah. And secondly, the letter Ra is going to be thin here. Okay, it's only thick when it's carrying a fatha, for example, here. Okay, or if it's carrying a dhamma. If it's carrying kasra, it has to be thin. Okay, so just keep these things in mind. Jazakallah.
Okay, Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. So moving on, I'll just remind everyone about our class etiquettes. So if you haven't already done your wudu, make sure that you do it right now. Okay, make sure that you are wearing clean clothes and that your head is covered with a scarf or a cap. Try to sit in a quiet place. Okay, otherwise, when you get a turn, if you get a turn, and we can't hear you, then it's going to be a loss for both you and us. Okay, make sure that you are sitting with an adult, or it could be a sibling or a parent. And lastly, make sure that you have joined with your correct ID. So sometimes Zoom automatically gives the device name or your own personal name to you when joining a meeting. So go to the participant list, and right at the top, you can check by which name you have joined the class. If it's not your student ID, then make sure to rename yourself. Now, I would like to make a few announcements. So we have been saying this, the staff, the teachers have been saying this for the past 2 weeks. We've been asking you, requesting you to send the recordings of your hifz. Okay, and I just want to emphasize that it is really important at this point in the course that you start sending in the hifz recordings of Surah Al-Fatiha and at least the last 5 chapters if you haven't already. Okay, if you're still waiting to be listened to those chapters in class, I'm afraid that it might not be possible, because obviously we are only left with a few weeks in the course. Okay, and it's not possible to listen to every single surah from every single student. But I just want to clarify that the hifz recordings are checked by our staff, okay, and they are marked in the same way as your hifz is marked in the class. Okay, so there is no difference between the two. Just send a recording so that we can update your hifz record. Okay, so we have a hifz record of all students, and we want it to be full, or we want it to be complete. Okay, so if you have memorized surahs and if you haven't got a turn to recite them yet, make sure to send the Hifz recording to our email address at g3hifz@gmail.com. In the email subject, mention Hifz recording, and in the email itself, make sure to write your student ID. So we have received some emails which didn't mention the student ID. So please make sure that you mention student ID, otherwise we have to find the student ID, and it basically becomes more work for us. Okay, and it will also be nice if you could mention the surahs which you are sending in the recording, because so that we just, by having a glance at the email, we know which surahs you have sent and which surahs you still have to send or recite. Okay, so make sure write your ID and the surahs that you are sending in the email. Second announcement that I want to make is that initially our course was supposed to be 10-week long, but we have realized that Eid al-Adha is also falling in the last week of the course. So our aim is to finish before the Eid. Okay, so we want to have the concluding session before Eid, inshallah. But unfortunately, because of that, we have even less time now, okay, to teach you and at the same time listen to your Hifz. Okay, so it's very important that you start sending in your Hifz recordings. Okay, so that's it. Now we are going to proceed with our today's lesson. Before we start Ayatul Kursi, today we are going to recap the rule of thick raw. Okay, and I mentioned this earlier as well when we were doing the opening prayer. I mentioned briefly when the raw has to be thick and thin. So let's look at it in some more detail. So first of all, when the raw is mutaharrik, which means when the raw is carrying a stroke, whether it's fatha, kasra, or dhamma, okay, it depending on which stroke it's carrying, it can be thick or thin. Okay, so raw mutaharrik is pronounced thickly only when it carries a fatha. Okay, so you can see in this example, the raw is carrying the stroke of fatha, so it is going to be pronounced with a thick sound, okay, with tafkhim. Okay, the second condition in which the raw has to be thick is when it's carrying the tanween of fatha. Okay, it's called fathatan. So if it's carrying a fathatan, it will also be thick. Okay, the third condition for a mutaharrik raw to be thick is when it's carrying the stroke of dhamma. Okay, you can see it here. And the last condition for a thick raw mutaharrik is when it's carrying the tanween of dhamma. Okay, so it's very easy to remember. If it's carrying a fatha, dhamma, or tanween of fatha or tanween of dhamma, it is always going to be thick. Okay, so I would like to request all students to remember this. Okay, the second thing, thing, when raw is sakin, sometimes when raw is sakin, it is also thick. Okay, so the first condition for a sakin raw to be thick is when the previous letter is carrying a fatha. Okay, so as you can see in this example, al-kawthar, the raw itself is sakin, but the previous letter sa is carrying a fatha. Okay, therefore the raw has to be thick. Similarly, if the raw itself is sakin, but the previous letter is carrying a dhamma, the raw is also going to be thick. Okay, the third condition is when, again, raw is sakin, but the next letter is a thick letter. Okay, now if you remember from the lesson when we did the thick letters, okay, we have 7 thick letters and Sod is one of them. Okay, but this thick letter could be any letter. It could be Qaf, it could be Ta, okay? It could be any of those 7 thick letters. As long as it's a thick letter, the raw sakin also has to have a thick sound, okay? And the last condition is when the raw sakin is preceded by a Hamzatul Wasl. Okay, Hamzatul Wasl is just a name for blank alif. Okay, so as you can see in this last example, we have a Ra Sakin and the previous letter is a Hamzatul Wasl. In this case, the Ra Sakin is going to be thick as well. Okay, so now I would like to request the ST for a student so we can go through these examples.
NG3071.
NG3071, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so let's start the practice. You can start with Bismillah.
A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi.
Okay, so is the Ra going to be thick or thin in this case?
Thick.
That's right, it is thick. So try to make a thicker sound for it, okay? Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Much better. Next one.
Naran.
Okay, almost right. We have a blank alif here, okay? And the previous letter, which is Noon, is carrying a fatha. So what do we have to do here?
You prolong it to 2 seconds.
That's right, okay? Because this alif is alif mad. So try again.
Naran.
Okay, so if we are not pausing here, we are going to say naron. Okay, if we were to pause, that's right. And if we were to pause, then the tanween of fatha will change into vertical fatha. So then it will be ra. Okay, 2 seconds long. Next one.
Nasrullahi.
Okay, so is the ra going to be thick in this case?
Yes, I think.
That's right. It is going to be thick. And why is it going to be thick?
Because because
Look at the stroke on top.
because
Do you know the name of the stroke? Do you know the name of the stroke?
Dhamma.
That's right. So the Ra is going to be thick because it is carrying a Dhamma. Okay. If it was carrying a Kasra, then it will be thin. Okay. Next one.
Khafurun.
Again, almost right. What is this Waw Sakin?
It's a thin letter.
No. So the Waw Sakin here is preceded by a Madmoom letter. Okay. Madmoom means a letter which is carrying a Dhamma. So that makes this Waw Sakin Waw Mad. Okay. Waw of elongation, just like the Alif of elongation over here. Okay. So similarly, in the same way, you have to prolong this for 2 seconds as well, just like you prolong the Noon over here. Okay. So try again.
Khafurun.
Okay. Make sure the Ra is also thick. Ghafurun.
Khafurun.
Okay. Inshallah, practice, it will get better. Jazakillah G3071. Can we have one more student?
Yes. AG3069.
AG30. We already have had AG3069.
Okay. AG3089.
Jazakillah. AG3089. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so you can start with Bismillah from this word.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Al-Kawthar.
Very good, well done. Is the ra thick or thin in this?
Thick.
That's right, very good. And why is it thick?
Because the letter before has fatha.
That's right, well done. Next one.
Well done, Zur.
Very good. Okay, so in this one, the ra is thick, okay, because the previous letter is carrying a dhamma, but the previous letter is also one of the 7 thick letters, okay? So we have to make sure that we are making a thick sound for the last 2 letters. So try that again.
Well done, Zur.
Okay, much better. Next one.
Mirsadan.
Okay, so again, the ra is sakin, but because the next letter is a thick letter, we have to make a thick sound for the ra as well. Okay, so try this again.
Mirsadan.
Excellent. Last one.
Rabberji'un.
Okay, very good. So we have 2 raws. First, we have a raw here, which is a maftuh raw. Okay, just like the first example over here. So we have to make a thick sound for this one. And then again for the raw sakin. Why do we have to make a thick sound for this raw? It's sakin, right?
Because it has a blank alif before it.
That's right, a hamzatul wasl. So try this again. Rabbirji'un.
Rabberji'una.
Okay, jazakallah. So now we are going to move on to our today's lesson. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, today we are doing the second half of Ayatul Kursi. Inshallah, we'll finish Ayatul Kursi today. So before we practice it, I'm going to play the audio recording for this part only. And I would like to request all students to listen carefully and repeat at home. Okay, it will be a good practice. And can I ask the ST to confirm if you can hear the sound?
Yes, I can hear. Sorry to interrupt. Empty. Now I
Yes.
can't hear it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me play that again. Okay, I'll play it again.
Okay. No, it's not clear.
Okay, let me. Okay, I will try one last time. ST?
Yeah.
I will try it one last time, and if you can tell me
Okay.
if it's clear. Okay, let me.
إلا بما شاءهم ولا يحيطون بشيء.
Is it better now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
ولا يحيطون بشيء من وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
Okay, Jazakallah everyone. So that was the end of the recording. Now we are going to practice this verse. So can I request DST for a student?
NG3093.
NG3093. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, you can start with Tawuz.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
Jazakillah. So, mashallah, you recited really well and you applied a lot of rules correctly. Okay, so well done for that. The only thing that I could notice was that you weren't differentiating between similar sounding letters. Okay, so first of all, we have the letter to. Okay, this has a thick sound compared to the letter ta. Okay, so make sure to round your lips and raise your tongue. Okay, so
Okay.
again, so the same letter appears here as well in this letter. So try again this word.
ولا يحيطون بشيء.
Okay, Jazakillah. So this time it was much better and you also fixed the sound of ha as well. Okay, so we have two types of ha. Okay, we have small ha. Okay, it looks differently depending on its location in the word. Okay, when it's at the end, it looks like this. When it's in the middle, it looks like this, but they are essentially the same. Okay, and then we have the big ha. Okay, it appears twice in Bismillah as well. This one, the big ha, comes from middle of the throat. Okay, so when you put the finger in the middle of the throat, you'll realize when you pronounce it correctly. Okay, ha. And the small one has a softer sound. Okay, and it comes from the lower bottom part of the throat. Ha. Okay.
Okay.
So try this word as well.
كرسيه.
Okay, this was good. So the letter ra, is it going to be thick here or thin?
Thick.
That's right, but it is sakin. So why is it going to be thick?
Because the previous letter has a dam on it.
That's right. So well done. And then again, we have another raw sakin here. Okay, so why is this one going to be thick?
Because the previous letter has a foot on it.
That's right. Well done. The next letter that you need to try and differentiate the sound of is letter Ain. Okay, so Ain and Alif have similar sounds. Okay, but just like the letter Ha, Ain also comes from middle of the throat. You pronounced it nicely over here. Okay, but you didn't do it correctly at the end over here. Okay, it appears twice. So can you try this last part again?
Okay. وهو العلي العظيم.
Very good. And then we have the letter Z. Is this a thick letter or a thin letter?
A thick letter.
That's right. Well done. So we have to differentiate its sound from the letter Zal, okay, and the letter Za. Okay, Za has a thin sound, and this one, Z, has a thicker sound. And well done, you corrected your mistake over here. So initially you made a thick sound, okay, but Hamza has a thin sound, okay, it has a soft sound, and it comes from the bottom part of the throat. Okay, Jazakallah and G3093. Can we have one more student for the practice?
NG3055.
NG3055. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, you can start with vowels.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah and G3055. So you recited well as well. Okay, there are a few things that you can work on. Okay, first of all, do you know what rule you have to apply on Mim Mushaddad?
No.
Okay, so there are two letters, Mim and Noon. Okay, you have to remember these two. Whenever these two letters carry the sign of tashdid, okay, which is this sign, it looks like a small W. You have to make a nasal sound, okay, and you have to hold that nasal sound for 2 seconds. Okay, so it's going to be بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ. Okay, try.
Kunna.
Yes, ghunna, that's right. Nasal sound is ghunna. So try this again and remember what I just told you. Bish. Okay, finish the word. Okay, so you're pausing in the middle of the word. Okay, try not to break a word. You can pause on min. Okay, or you could pause on ilmih. Okay, that's fine. This time it is much better. Very good effort. Okay, just like last student, I'm going to mention this to you as well. Okay, and this is for all students. Remember to differentiate between the sound of big ha and small ha. Okay, so NG3055, can you try this word again? Yuhituna. Much better. Okay, and the sound of to is also going to be thick. Okay. One last thing that I want to ask you, do you know how long you have to prolong the short strokes, which is the short stroke of fatha, short stroke of kasra, and short stroke of dhamma?
Is it 1 second?
That's right, it is 1 second long. Okay, so you do know the rule. Remember to apply it correctly as well. Okay, so you prolong the scene for more than 1 second here. Similarly, you prolong the ayn for more than 1 second. Okay, so try not to spend too long on short strokes. Okay, and then the long strokes, do you know how long you have to apply on them?
2 seconds.
That's right, well done. So remember that as well. Okay, try not to spend less than or more than 2 seconds.
Okay.
Jazakallah and G3055. One last thing that I want to mention. We have this sign of small jim. Okay, this is a sign of this is a pause sign. Okay, what jim means is that it's up to you whether you pause or continue. Okay, it is up to the reader. If you choose to pause, okay, which I think you did, you have to apply the rule of pausing. Okay, and according to the rules of waqf, rules of pausing, we have to change the fatha into sukoon. So this is going to change into wal ord. Okay, you don't need to say wal orda if you're going to pause. Okay, Jazakallah G3055. So now I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and I would like to request all students to please join the breakout room if you do receive the notification. Okay, just give me a few seconds. And one more thing that I would like to remind all the students is that you have to stay in the breakout room. Okay, so previously I've seen it myself as well, and some of the teachers have told me that the students don't stay in the breakout room till the end. If you have been assigned to the breakout room, please stay there till the end. You will come back to the main session before the homework. Okay, so you're not going to miss out anything. Okay, so the breakout room and the main session are the same. Okay, for the time being when the hifz is being listened. Okay. So all of you, those of you who have been assigned to the breakout room, you should start receiving the notification. Okay, so please make sure to click on join. You will be more likely to get a turn in the breakout room. Okay, there will be fewer students in the breakout room. Okay, I think the students are leaving now. So we can start listening to the hifz in the main session. ST, can we have a student for the hifz?
First student for the Hifz AG3016.
AG3016, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, AG3016, have you memorized Surah Al-Fil or Surah Al-Maun?
I've memorized Surah Al-Fil.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to pause the screen share on. Okay, you can start with Tawuz.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف معقول.
Jazakallah. I would like to request you to repeat the last verse again. فَجَعَلَهُمْ
فجعلهم كعصف معقول.
Jazakallah. Okay, so first of all, well done. Your hifz was really good. Okay. In terms of pronunciation, I've highlighted a few things. Okay, you can take a note of these and work on them when you practice. Okay, so first of all, the letter Ra, we covered this rule today. So I want to ask you, is it going to be thick here or thin?
Thin.
Okay, why do you think it's going to be thin? Look at the stroke it is carrying. Are you sure it is going to be thin?
No.
Okay, so remember, whenever the letter Ra is carrying a fatha or a dhamma or their tanween, it has to be thick. Okay, so what do I mean by tanween? Look at this word letter here. The letter Ra is carrying the tanween of fatha. Okay, so whenever there are two fatha, it's called the tanween of fatha or fathatan. Okay, in that case, it is also going to be thick. Okay, similarly, if it's carrying a tanween of dhamma, it is also going to be thick. Okay, I want to request all the students to try and remember these conditions. Okay, if you don't remember them, you won't be able to apply the rule correctly. Okay, so it is going to be thick over here as well. So try this again. Alam tara kayfa. 83016.
Alam tara kayfa.
Okay, much better. The next thing is that you didn't make a separate sound for the letter Jim and the letter Ain here. Okay, you sort of combined them. Can you say, recite this verse again?
Alam yajal kaydahum fi tadlil.
Yes, so again, don't say yajal, okay? Yaj'al. Try.
Alam yajal.
Very good, excellent. And do you know what rule we have to apply on the letter Jim?
Kalkala.
That's right, very good. So Jim is a kalkala letter. If the letter Jim is carrying the sign of sukun, we have to do a kalkala. Okay, so well done. So remember to make a separate sound for Jim and Ain. Okay, there are two separate letters. Next thing is that, again, as I mentioned to the previous students as well, work on the sound of Ain. Okay, Ain comes from middle of the throat. Okay, so try this again. Alayhim.
Alayhim.
Much better. Next, we have the letter To and we have the letter Ta. Can you tell me which one is thick and which one is thin?
Ta.
That's right. This one, To, has a thick sound. Okay, so you have to make it thicker. Tayran.
Tayran.
Very good effort, mashallah. And this letter, Ta, is going to be thin. Okay, so AG3016, the letter Ta is followed by Ra Sakin. So is the Ra in this case going to be thick or thin?
Thin.
Okay, so it's going to be thick. Okay, it's not going to be thin. It is only thin when it is carrying a kasra. Okay, so in this case, the Ra is Sakin. Okay, and the previous letter is carrying a fatha. So the Ra has to be thick. Okay, so Tarmihim.
Tarmihim.
Much better. And do you know the name of the rule which we have to apply a Noon Sakin here?
Ikhfa.
That's right. And why do we do Ikhfa?
Because there's a schoon on the noon.
That's right. Ikhfa is done on noon sakin, okay, but it depends on the letter next to it. If the letter next to it is a huruf al-izhar or a throat letter, for example, here we have tanween followed by alif, okay? So we have to manifest the sound of tanween, okay? It's toyrun, okay? This is called izhar. But because in this case, noon sakin is followed by a letter which is not a throat letter, that's why we have to do ikhfa here, okay? And lastly, what rule do we apply here on, we have a tanween again followed by mim mushaddad. Do you know the name of rule that rule? So we are merging the sound of the mim into mim mushaddad while making a slight nasal sound. Ka'asfim ma'kul. Okay, this is called idgham. Okay, so try to remember this rule as well. Jazakallah AG3016. ST, can we have the next student?
AG3029.
AG3029, Assalamu alaikum. AG3029, Assalamu alaikum.
He is unmuted.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. AG3029. Have you memorized Surah Al-Fil as well?
Yes.
Okay, well done. That's good. You can start with Tawbuz.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل. فأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول.
Jazakallah. Can I request you to recite the last verse again? فَجَعَلَهُمْ.
فجعلهم كعصف مأكول.
Okay, Jazakallah. All right, so well done. Your hifz was really good. Okay, in terms of pronunciation, again, there are a few things which you can improve. Okay, first of all, the letter to, it's a thick letter, but don't make a round sound for it. Okay, don't say twa. Okay, just say to. Okay, next. I would like to ask you, the letter ra in this case, it's carrying the stroke of fatha. Is it going to be thick or thin?
Thick.
That's right. So try to make a thick sound for it. Rabbuka.
Rabbuka.
Excellent. And in this word here, we have the letter ain. Okay. And I noticed that you weren't doing the correct sound for ain. Okay. Do you know which part of throat it comes from?
Middle.
That's right. So keeping that in mind, can you try again?
ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل.
Okay, much better. All right, the next mistake is kind of a major mistake, okay, but it can be fixed, okay, with practice. So you need to practice and revise. The next verse starts with wa, okay, the letter wa. Sometimes a lot of sometimes kids confuse it with the letter fa. Okay, so make sure that you don't do that. Okay, when you're reciting off by heart, remember that this was the word starts with va or sala. Okay, not fa. Okay. Again, the letter ain, you have to remember that it comes from middle of the throat. Okay, and make the right sound for it. At the end, in the last word, I felt like you were making a thick sound for the qaf. Okay, but this kaf has a thin sound. Okay, the qaf with the 2 dots, that's the one with the thick sound. Okay, it's a thick letter. But this one is a thin one. So can you say this word again?
فجعلهم كعصف مأكول.
Okay, again, it feels like you're making a thick sound. Okay, so try again. Ma'kul.
كعصف مأكول.
Much better. Very good. Jazakallah G3029. Okay, can we have the next student?
NG3018.
NG3018. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so NG3018, have you memorized Surah Al-Fil as well? Previously, you recited Surah Quraysh.
Pardon, what did you say?
Have you memorized Surah Al-Fil?
Surah Al-Fil.
Yes, the one that was just recited by the previous 2 students.
Is it Alif Lam Mim?
Okay, so it starts with Alam Tara Kayfa. Okay, let me show you. Okay.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं ये पढ़ती हूँ सूरह बकरा की आयत।
Okay, so NG3018, have you memorized Surah Al-Baqarah?
Yes.
Okay, you can recite that. Okay, start with Tabuz.
I only know a little bit.
That's fine. Just recite as much as you know.
Okay. Alif Lam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك. That's all I know up to.
Okay, try. It would be nice if you can finish the verse. أنزل من قبلك.
أنزل لا من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون.
Okay. Jazakillah. Let me share the screen. Okay. So your Hifz was good. Okay. You just need to keep revising and keep practicing. Okay. And in terms of pronunciation, I will point out a few things. Okay. So first of all, we have the letter Zal. Okay. So remember to differentiate the sound of Zal from the letter Za. Okay. These are two different letters. So can you see here? This letter Za has similar sound to the English alphabet Z, okay, or Z. Whereas this letter Zal has a vibration in the sound. Okay, the tip of the tongue should touch the upper front teeth, okay, and make a vibration in the sound. Zalika.
Zalika.
Okay, that was much better. Next, we covered this rule today. So can you tell me if the raw here is going to be thick or thin?
Thick.
Okay, and why is it going to be thick? Because it's carrying a fatha. Okay, so that's why it has to be thick. The next thing, very important, which I want to mention, is that you paused at la roib. Okay, that's fine. But then again, you paused at fi. Okay, so I want to mention this, and I want all students to listen carefully. There are 3 dots here, and then there are 3 dots here. Okay, and you will see a lot of these in the Quran. Okay, they always come in a pair of 2. Okay, and the rule for this is that if you pause on the first 3 dots, then you should not pause on the second 3 dots. Okay, if you don't pause on the first 3 dots, then you can pause on the second 3 dots. In other words, only stop on one of the 3 dots. Okay, is that clear, NG3018?
Yes.
Okay, and this is important so that the meaning of the verse makes sense. Okay, so that it doesn't breaks in the middle. Okay. The next thing that I want to ask you, do you know what rule we have to apply on Mim Mushaddad? Okay, so I mentioned this to the previous student as well. On Mim Mushaddad and Noon Mushaddad, we have to do a nasal sound or gunna for 2 seconds. Okay, so this is going to be Mim. Try.
Mimma.
Very good, much better. And the last thing that I would like to mention is that we have ba sakin here, okay, and we have qaf sakin here, okay, and these 2 letters are letters of qalqala. So if these 2 letters carry sukoon, okay, then we have to do a jerking sound. Okay, we have to do qalqala. So instead of razaqnahum, this is going to be razaqnahum.
Razaqnahum.
Very good. And qablik.
Qablik.
Very good. And the sound of the letter qaf has to be thick. Okay, so remember this NG3018. The sound of this qaf with 2 dots has to be thick. Okay, so now we have to, we are going to move towards the end of our class. Okay, so I'll quickly go through the homework. So the homework for today is to memorize Ayatul Kursi. Okay, Ayatul Kursi is verse.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you close the breakout room?
Is it not closed? Okay, let me check. Okay, so the breakout room unfortunately didn't close. It will take a few seconds to close. While it closes, I'll just remind everyone to make sure to send your Hifz recordings. Okay, try to send it at least for Surah Al-Fatiha and the last 5 chapters, which include Surah Nas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Lahab, and Surah An-Nasr. Okay, so try to send your Hifz recordings for these 5 chapters. So far, we've only received a few recordings. Okay, and as I said, if you want your Hifz record to be up to date and to be complete, then please send your Hifz recordings to our email address, g3hifz@gmail.com. So let me check if the breakout rooms have closed. Okay, so the breakout rooms are now closed, and I believe that everyone is back. Okay, breakout room teacher, can you confirm?
Yes, she's there.
Okay, Jazakallah. So as I was saying before, the homework for tonight is to memorize Ayatul Kursi. Okay, it is verse 256 of Surah Al-Baqarah. If you have already memorized Surah Al-Fatiha, last 10 chapters, and the first 17 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, then you should revise them. And if you haven't memorized all of these, then try to memorize a new surah or a few new verses at a time. Okay. So now we are going to end our today's class with the ending prayer.